Bang, shots fired, pain is what you desire. If the pen is mightier than the sword, then how do we get here, my God? My God. So you wanna start a war? My God. So you wanna start a war? My God.
Why is there war in the heavens? At the sound of that strange voice in my head, I whipped around searching the battlefield with my eyes. We don't have time for this, warrior. The Horde Queen is upon us, and if you stand a chance at defeating her, you're gonna need to know the answer to that question. Why is there war in the heavens? The fallen angels battle with those who still dwell in Yah's esteem, I answered, although my eyes continued to scan the battlefield to see who was speaking to me. BAបាលand Abir's voice I knew. The preacher's voice I knew. This voice was neither of theirs. And what does that mean? That Yah's esteem is no longer with them, he asks. I bent down and retrieved my coat, putting it on. Fresh blood that I was sure was still warm from my victims dripped from the sword I held in my hand. As I slowly made my way around the dead bodies, searching the faces of the warriors who all watched me, looking for the owner of that voice. Hey, Monroe, you alright, man? Malek asks, frowning at my odd behavior, his worried gaze shooting between me and the hilltop where the sound of the thumping was coming closer. But it sounded as if his voice was coming from far away. Someone wept loudly over their dead loved one, but even their voices sounded as if it was coming from a distance. The thumping that shook the earth. I could feel the vibration of it, but I could no longer hear it. Whoever this was that was in my head was powerful. They managed to isolate me in a way so that, yeah, I knew that I was still on the battlefield with my Akeem, and that we just fought a bloody battle with danger still just beyond the hill. Yet, I felt as if I was in a bubble where only me and this voice existed. My gaze went to the drummer on the hill, but as soon as it did, his hands stilled on his drums as his eyes slowly shut, causing the field to once again be cast in darkness. The only light now coming from the few torches that was being held by the warriors that were searching amongst the bodies for their dead and the moon. Abir rubbed against my leg, nearly moving me with his big body. I'll show you the one who speaks to you. His familiar voice brushed at my mind before he took off across the field, running towards Hitter's camp that was about 70 or so yards away. Answer me, warrior. What does it mean that Yah is no longer with them? The strange voice came again. I shook my head. I don't know. They messed up. They went against Yah's will, and he turned from them. Hey, Monroe, you cool, Op? Hitter asked, probably wondering why the hell I was talking to myself. But I couldn't respond to him because the voice began to speak again. Out of everyone here, you should know the answer to that question. You spent your whole life watching the essence of Yahuwah flow through all that he created. Every green thing, every human being, every animal. You've watched his essence flow through them all. But you've always seen those without his essence. Yeah, mostly demons and fallen angels, I responded. Yo, who he talking to? The Gutter King asked nobody in particular. Abir came to a stop in front of two men standing underneath a tree. One of the men held a torch in his hand that highlighted the fact that they had the same face. Twins. They were twins, and they both stood looking at me. Abir brushed against the legs of the twin that wasn't holding the torch in his hand. I narrowed my gaze at him as he reached down and brushed the top of Abir's head. "How are you talking in my head?" I asked him. "Ah," I heard Hitter say. Again, he sounded like he spoke from far away, although he and the other Akeem was still standing right by me. "Lanix." "Is that a kite?" Marcus asked him. Hitter nodded. "Yup." Although the one Hitter called Lanix was a good distance away, I saw him shake his head slightly as if my question irritated him. "See, we don't have time for me to explain to you how it is I can speak to you in your head, brother. You must listen to me. We always say that Yah is love, but I doubt that most realize exactly what they're saying. Yah's very essence is love. They war in the heavens because the angels that fell no longer have it. Yahuwah's love is a gift that man has always taken for granted. And the fallen hate men because he gives it so freely to them. Yahuwah's love is the breath he blew in Adam. It's the mystery the fallen angels and the wicked men alike have tried to reinvent in their clones, but they haven't been able to do it. True love, and not its strange counterfeit, can only be given by Yah. It's why the fallen's demon seed prefer dwelling in the bodies of men instead of the clones their fathers have created for them. You see, it's the closest demons will ever get to Yahuwah's love. Love, Monroe, is the single most important thing in existence. And he gives it so freely to mankind, and yet we treat it as if it's common. We treat it as if it is something that we have to waste. There were tears in Lanix's voice, but I was too far away to see if they flowed down his face. The fact that Yah gives his love so freely to us, to an undeserving being like man, drives the Malakim that have been cut off from it mad. Can you imagine, Can you imagine what it must feel like to have known Yahuwah and then to be cut off from him? Before I could answer, a feeling of complete and utter desolation hit me, stealing my breath. I yelled out, falling to my knees, as the very will to live no longer existed inside of me. I've never felt this kind of bleakness. Not when I was a child and my mother and father would not have anything to do with me. Not when I was at the gym and Ty would have nothing to do with me. No man can survive this emptiness. My chest felt tight as I began to struggle for breath. Can you imagine what it must feel like for Yah to turn away from you? I yelled out again as another wave of anguish hit me. The Akeem were all trying to help me, but there was nothing they could do. My flesh felt like it was dying on my bones to the point that it was cracking. I felt stripped of all my life force. It was too painful. I was gonna die. Now imagine having never knew love like the demon seed. Lanix continued. I shook my head, trying to signal for him to stop. It was too much. The hate and the rage was flowing through my body was staggering. I thirsted. I hungered. It was unquenchable. I wanted to lash out at the Akeem who stood around me and destroy them completely. The jealousy was beyond anything humanly possible. The hate inside of me was so strong, my flesh could no longer bear it. I felt big, pus-filled sores break out all over me as my body tried to rid itself of the toxin. I opened my mouth to tell him enough, but my tongue felt like sandpaper, so dry that I feared it was getting ready to crack and shatter into pieces. It's because of Yahuwah's love that our tongues taste, and our ears hear, and our eyes see. It's because of his love that we can look at a sight and say, how beautiful. It's because of his love that we can hold our children and our loves in our arms and know that we've been gifted. It's because of love that we open our eyes in the morning and see the sunlight. Our key. All these things are gifts we have taken for granted. And as quickly as it came, the feeling of emptiness disappeared, and I was once again filled with Yah's breath. I collapsed on the ground, desperately breathing air into my starved lungs. As I thought back to all the days I was unsatisfied with my life simply because I didn't have what I thought I needed, completely taking for granted what I did have. Yah's love. How could I have taken that for granted? Nothing is better than it. Rise, warrior. Now that you know what you stand to lose, fight for it. Fight for love. The whore queen has come, and her wine is very deadly. Do not drink of it. Standing to my feet, I looked across the field at Lennox with unshed tears in my eyes. I placed my hand on my chest over my heart. Thank you, I mouthed. With a sad smile on his face, he nodded before pointing to something behind me. Monroe. A female's voice that I didn't recognize called on the wind. Although alluring, it put me in the mind of fire. The ground in front of me turned red, as if the moon had suddenly turned to blood. I whipped around just as a silky red garment bellowing in the wind covered our view of the moon. Because we were downhill of it, it cast us all in its red shadow. My gaze followed the bellowing garment down, preparing myself to battle whatever giant those thumps belonged to. What I was not prepared for was what actually came into view on top of the hill. The moon shined bright, highlighting her beauty. For a moment, she stood looking down at us, taking in our camp. Everybody stopped and stared, wondering if their eyes were playing tricks on them. This woman was literally too beautiful to be real. Now, she wasn't beautiful in the classic sense, not like Ty or the other daughters of Sarah, who had a purity about them that it just can't be faked. Like rare gems, they shined amongst the thorns. No, not this woman. She was queen of the thorns, a golden thorn. She made one want to be pricked just to taste her poison. Everything about her screamed sex. Her very presence stimulated the lower regions of a man. Hell, no doubt many a woman as well. As she began her descent down the hill towards us, her hips swayed invitingly. The silk blood red cape she wore bellowed around her like the wind, seemingly to caress her body, the ground, and the very air with which it touched. It was tied around her neck, holding her hood in place. The outfit she wore underneath it emphasized her body perfectly. She was dressed in gold. No, I don't mean fabric. I mean gold. Swirling around her perfectly shaped breasts were strips of gold. It went in a spiral shape, hypnotizing all who followed its path to her peaks. Her smooth brown stomach was bare. The strips of gold started back at her hips and wove around her thighs, once again snarling whatever gaze journeyed along its path. I don't think I ever seen nothing like it. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Everything about her trapped her victim, and it was me that was caught in her gaze. A crown made of diamonds peeked from underneath her hood. Her sexy brown body looked as if it had been brushed in gold dust and decorated with diamonds. No way this chick was human. The only thing we could all do was stare at her. She was so beautiful, we all forgot about the thumping. It took me a minute to realize that it stopped when she came into view. Was this slender woman the source of the thumping? There is more evil inside of her than you can imagine. ABOMINATIONS brushed my mind as he came and sat next to my right leg. You must use your spiritual eye. The woman's hypnotic gaze fell on ABOMINATIONS.
Silence.
Her voice came on the wind, caressing the ears of all who heard it, but also muting ABOMINATIONS so that I could no longer hear his voice. She became the dominant sound in my ear. Her touch was 1,000 times more alluring than BAEL's had ever been. No man can withstand this kind of temptation. Dear Yah, you have put too much faith in your servant. I cannot defeat this demon. Even now as we speak, my body wanted to respond to her. I inhaled sharply when I suddenly felt her behind me, pressing her plump breast against my back, while rubbing her hands up my stomach to my chest. She purred like a cat and somehow moved around my body like smoke until she was standing in front of me. Her scent, oh, my eyes closed. She smelled like sugar cookies.
We finally meet, warrior.
Her voice was like fire, licking down my back. Although seductive out of this world, hell could be heard in it and seen burning in her eyes. But it was an alluring fire. It was the kind of fire that comforted a man while alluring him to his death. Golden threads ran through the cape and her skin like moving pieces of art. Once again, hypnotizing all whose eyes followed their path. The woman worked all of the senses at once. She was temptation uncut. Her cape served as wings as she floated back a bit so that she could take in all 6 of us who stood there. The purring sound that came from her intensified as her hypnotic gaze took its time, raking over every inch of our bodies.
You sons of Jacob carry such power within you,
She cooed with a voice that dripped sex before licking her lips that glistened in the moonlight. She gently ran her palm down the side of her waist, more like caress, causing the golden threads to shift enticingly with her movements. What the hell? Malek cleared his throat as his gaze raked down her body. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is the devil. Dumbfounded, unable to look away from her, we all just nodded our heads in agreement. She held her beautiful head back and laughter that sounded like burning crystals filled the night.
Oh no, nothing so fancy. I am but a servant, come to pay homage to my Lord and Master.
Her gaze fell on me.
Come, Master. Let me show you all that I have to offer you. I wish only to serve you and help you become the God you were meant to be.
As she spoke, her red cape gently wrapped around me. I growled, biting down on my teeth, trying to fight the pleasure that shot up my spine. Damn! Damn! It was everything satisfying. Its touch was like the feeling that one gets right before you do something dangerous. It caused my body to produce dopamine at an alarming rate. I felt it rushing through each of my nerves, taking control. Her laughter filled the night as we shot straight up in the air, completely at her mercy. I was aware that we were flying, but I couldn't look away from her inviting gaze. My body jerked as erotic images flooded my mind. It was an unwelcomed, invasive assault, but one I was powerless to stop.
I have never seen one such as you.
She cooed, her words caressing my skin just as much as her cape. The images I was being shown were so real. I could feel her warm mouth on my body, although I was still fully dressed. The masterful way she used her mouth was past anything a human woman could ever. No human man could stand up to such an assault. Her gaze slowly made its way over my body.
The things that we could become. There has never been a man such as you. Never. You are great in every way.
She licked her lips.
I want to taste you. I want to consume you.
As she spoke, she ran her hands up her body, cupping her breasts, gasping as if we were making love. A shiver went through her, and somehow I felt it too. I know I needed to wake up from whatever spell she was casting over me, but I couldn't. I could feel myself falling deeper and deeper into its grasp. The pleasure I was receiving right now had me feeling prey to my flesh. One would willingly follow her to their death, if only to hold on to the pleasure that she could cause for a moment longer. When my feet next touched the ground, I exhaled in relief, because at the very least, the sexual images in my head had stopped. Although her cape that bellowed around her seductive body like red smoke, but still somehow managed to always be touching me, caused me to remain in a heightened state of arousal. Breathing heavy, I tried to work up the will to push it away as I took in where we were. In front of us was the dilapidated ruins of the White House. Blood fiends were everywhere like roaches. They lurked in every shadow, watching us with their hungry gaze. She began to glide towards the doors, and although I didn't have a will to, my feet followed. I bit down on my teeth, knowing the cape was somehow controlling me, but I was still unable to push it away. Keeping a cautious eye on the blood fiends, I followed the whore queen into her den. But I might as well not have bothered. As we walked past the zombie-like creatures, they all went down to their knees, bowing until their faces touched the floor. "My queen," some of them hissed, reaching out but not daring to touch her. Unwillingly, I followed her into the bowels of the White House, way down into a secret chamber that no doubt always existed in this place, even when this building was the driving powerhouse of the world. Down here, the floors was made of earth and the walls of rock. We came to a stop in front of what looked like to be a huge slab of stone. She waved her hand in front of it and a metal door appeared that was swiftly opened by a soldier dressed in all black. I narrowed my eyes at him. How many of these faceless soldiers had I fought over the years? Faceless clones created only for war. He bowed. "Welcome back, Your Majesty." She didn't respond to him, just led me down a long hall that was made of mirrors. Now this is what stuff got. Wow. In every mirror she watched me, but in each one of them she was doing something different, something freaky as hell that was attacking my senses. Clenching my hands into fists, I had to use all my strength to keep my body from betraying me and responding to her. When she saw me trying to fight her, she held her head back and laughed.
You fight a useless battle, warrior. The gods cannot resist me. What chance do you have? You are only just a man. I will have you. I will have all of you. There is none other that can offer you what I can.
I didn't want to believe it, but I was afraid her words were true. Just think of any sexy ass video vixen hot girl you've ever seen, and then intensify her by like 1,000. Yeah, that's what I was dealing with. As I followed her, the mirrors changed around me.
In the garden, the master promised man that they can become gods.
Her voice came to me, again reminding me of alluring flame.
I am a god maker.
At the end of the mirrors was what looked to be a door made of waters, a portal.
Come, warrior, let me show you.
I didn't want to follow her. I couldn't understand how my mind and body was doing two separate things. Traveling through portals was a dangerous thing for men because they were not created for mankind. They were created for spirits. Whether good or evil, certain laws can never be broken. Yah said that the earth is for man and the wandering spirits of the Nephilim. I don't know what happens to the spirits of men. The preacher told me once that there is a waiting place for them. He said those who died good go to a place called Abraham's bosom, and those who died evil go to a place that exists right next to Abraham's bosom, but that is a horrible place. I don't know, but what I do know is that no matter how they try to convince you otherwise, no man has gone into the heavens past the point that is allowed to men. Some portals lead into the heavens past that point allowed to mankind and the wandering spirits of the Nephilim. Only the Malachim can travel past that point. If a demon or a man try and go through that way, they cease to exist. It's like their DNA code disappears. It's best for men not to use these portals at all. In fact, outside of the preacher, I didn't know anyone who was brave enough to risk them on purpose. The first time it happened to Daweed and I had been the night we fought at the gym. I don't know about him, but I nearly died when I landed in Sheol on the other side. It took both BAṟEL and Abir to get me back on my feet. When I used Abir's eyes, I can travel with him. I trust him. This witch I did not trust. Who knows where the hell she was taking me? But since my legs were not obeying me, I guess we were getting ready to find out. Before I stepped through the water, her robe wrapped around me, covering me completely. When it unraveled again, going back to its light touch, we were standing in the middle of the Vatican, right in the front of what used to be the obelisk, but was now just a crumbled pile of rocks. For just a moment, she looked on at those rocks with saddened eyes. Wow, I patted myself to make sure I was still in one piece. Head good, chest, arms good, legs good. When she saw what I was doing, she tisked.
You have to learn to trust me, my prince.
She, said the Black Widow to her mate. My eyes scanned the area for blood fiends, but there were none. There was no one. Vatican City was empty. I remember seeing this place on the news before Daweed and I ended up in the wastelands. The Pope was giving a speech about something or another, and there were thousands of Catholics on the streets waiting to hear him. Now, like the White House, this place was only a shell of what it used to be. But unlike the White House, it was not filled with blood fiends. When my gaze landed back on the woman in front of me, it was to see that the lady in red had disappeared, and the Virgin Mary took her place. Her long red cape, now a long white one, that as if made of the wind, still caressed my legs and arms. Strange images filled my mind. Images of a morbidly obese, dark-skinned woman giving birth in the middle of a beautiful garden that was full of hanging plants. She was surrounded by her ladies' maids, who wiped her head and encouraged her to push.
I gave birth to the man-child.
The Whore Queen spoke, drawing my attention back to the present, pointing to a statue of the Black Madonna holding the baby Jesus.
I made him a god.
The image in my head changed to show the obese woman holding up the baby she'd given birth to, facing the sea. Behind her was a crowd full of people dressed in strange clothes.
I shall call him Tammuz.
She cried out to the sea.
My king is born again in him.
Her words caused the people to send up a loud cheer. The images cleared from my mind, and the whore queen once again stood in front of me, pointing to the statue of Jesus hanging from the cross. A devious smile came to her face, and for the first time I saw that she had fangs.
I made my son a god.
She turned, and the white cape floated around her like liquid smoke and glided into the abandoned church. Somebody had spray painted across the dome in red paint. This place was built on top of the temple of the Queen of Heaven. Welcome to hell. I grunted. That was kind of funny. However, when I saw that we were heading toward another water portal that waited for us at the end of the aisle, my humor fled. Stop walking, man. Damn, wake up. Nothing. My feet continued to carry me forward. I glanced down to see that robe gently brushing my legs. If only I could step away from it, as if it could read my thoughts. The cape made its way up my chest like a woman's hand, leaving intense pleasure in its wake.
Come, my master.
She cooed before stepping into the portal, her white robe covering me completely as it urged me to follow. There was a small voice inside my head begging me to wake up, but my flesh was louder, and it wasn't ready to give up how she was causing it to feel. Defenseless, I stepped through the portal. This time when the robe unraveled, revealing to me what was on the other side, I was not ready to see it. This was a place I had prayed never to see again. Sheol, the wastelands. The pain and the agony I felt in this place gave me the strength to draw my sword. I was getting ready to kill the woman and burn her damn magic cape. But before I could strike, she was back on me, rubbing against my body as if she and I was one flesh. And if y'all think her robe did a number, it was nothing compared to her body. I closed my eyes as wave after wave of orgasmic pleasure shot through me.
Come now, warrior.
She cooed in my ear, her warm tongue taking my lobe into her mouth. My body spasmed as another orgasmic wave slammed into it.
Lower your sword. This is my home, and now it's yours. Worry not,
she whispered. As she spoke, she guided my hand to resheath my sword. When I opened my eyes again, breathing heavy from the assault my body had just undergone, it was to find that she was once again the lady in red, the devious smile still on her face.
We're going to have so much fun together.
She licked one of the fangs in her mouth as if she tasted blood. What is this place? I growled, still trying to fight my own body.
Calm down, warrior. It's no big mystery. I seek to hide nothing from you. Before your people called it Sheol, it was called Bashan, the land of the Rephaim, my children. Come.
She suddenly appeared next to me. I jumped because I couldn't take her touching me again. She held her head back and laughed, but mercifully she didn't touch me. However, her red cape did not spare me the same courtesy. It continued to caress my chest, my arms, keeping me subdued by my own lust.
Let me show you the side of this place you did not see during your first trip.
She cooed as she glided across the sand. I didn't know where we were going. Just like the first time I was here, all I could see for miles was wasteland. She called it the land of the Rephaim. That made sense. When I was here in this place, wandering through the wilderness, I had to constantly fight demons. Some appeared as giants, some as beautiful women. The land was full of treachery. It got so bad till I could not trust my own vision. My eyes caused me to constantly fall into traps. It wasn't until I depended solely on ABOMINATIONS that I made my way out. And now here I was back in this place without ABOMINATIONS, without my strong man, facing the biggest challenge of my life. Yah, please, help your servant.
Come now,
She cooed, again taking the place of her robe. Now it was her hands rubbing my chest. I closed my eyes, biting down on my teeth, trying my best to fight the intense pleasure. But it was too strong, it took my breath.
None of that, my master.
She spoke close to my ear.
Would I bring you here and not keep you safe? I only want to show you what you couldn't see before. You were blind. I only wish now for you to see. Call on me, not him. Put your trust in me. Let me show you all of the possibilities.
She pointed to a huge mountain that was off to the right. I exhaled, once again breathing heavy, granted a break from the pleasure now that she wasn't touching me. But not too much of a break because her robe was back at work.
Mount Hermon,
She said.
did you see it the first time you were here?
My gaze went to the mountain she pointed to. I shook my head. I tried to see as little as possible last time I was here. And on a side note, for those of you who don't know, Mount Hermon is the place where the fallen angels landed, the ones who led me in astray.
Oh, it's because you were so tense.
The Whore Queen said, bringing my attention back to her.
I wanted to comfort you. I did. But I wasn't allowed. Your God kept me at bay. He wanted you to suffer. But now you're in my hands, and I shall show you all the wondrous things this place has to offer.
The sand began to rumble at our feet. I went for my sword again, but she stilled my hand.
You are my guest. Nothing shall happen to you.
Her gaze turned to the rumbling sand.
Show yourselves.
I took a step back as the sand exploded in front of us. When all the granulates settled, about 200 sand giants stood in front of us. Recognizing these bastards from the first time I was here, I went to reach for my sword again, preparing myself to fight to the death. And as if she could read my mind, the Whore Queen was on me again, her hand rubbing up my sleeve, preventing me from drawing my sword, muddling my mind with pleasure.
You are so violent, my prince. Of course, it is one of the things I love about you. But now is not the time for violence.
As she spoke, the mammoth-sized beings surrounded us, staring down at me with all the hate they felt. Slowly they parted for another giant, ugly sand bastard. But this one wore a rusty crown on his head, so I guess he was important. Well, you know, important for a giant, ugly sand bastard. Leaning his huge, disfigured face down in front of us, he growled.
Why have you brought the slayer to our door?
Monroe.
The Whore Queen cooed as if there was not a damn monster blocking our path.
I would like you to meet my son, King Og of Bashan.
I didn't respond. Every cell in my body urged me to kill him. He and I were natural-born enemies, even before he and his men tortured me, causing me to doubt myself and foolishly depend on BAṟEL. These wandering spirits of the dead Nephilim taught me never to trust my own sight.
He didn't always look like this.
She spoke as if she was saddened.
Many years ago, your God instructed your ancestors to come here and kill my son and all his men, even though they've lived here for many years after the flood in peace, not disturbing the affairs of men.
She continued to rub my arm. I bit down on my teeth so hard I was afraid they were going to shatter. Here I stood in the presence of one of our people's greatest enemies, and my body was not ready for battle. It was ready to throw this woman down on the sand and ravish her. The feeling of weakness only angered me more. This was not a place to let down your guard, not even for a moment. This land was treacherous. You needed to sleep with your hand on your sword and one eye open. When the giant saw his mother touch me, he growled. He may have been made of sand, but his breath stank of sulfur. My body went rigid as I tried to ignore her touch enough to reach for my sword again.
Don't worry, my sweet prince. I don't blame you.
She cooed in my ear.
However, my son is set in his ways. He refuses to leave this place and, like the rest of us, find a body to inhabit so that he could feel again, taste again.
She shook her head.
No, he prefers to remain here and wallow in his misery. He and all his men.
She shrugged.
What can you do? Boys will be boys.
This time when she stepped away from me, I nearly fell to my knees, so relieved was my body to get a break from the pleasure her assault caused. Her red cape floated in the air around her like a pair of wings as she circled me, taking me in. And yeah, a bit of the cape still touched me. I'm thinking that as soon as it's not, I'm gonna break this whore's neck. I don't like being played like a damn toy. I don't like it at all.
Isn't he amazing?
She asked nobody in particular. I held up a sand eyebrow as if to say he wasn't impressed. Trust me, player, the feeling mutual. She chuckled.
It doesn't matter what you think.
At first, I thought she was talking to me, before I saw that her gaze had settled on the giants.
Now, bow before your God,
she said, pointing at me. Stunned, I watched as without so much as a mutter, the giants fell to their knees before me, one after the other, bowing at my feet, until it was only Og and his mother left standing. No way he was going to bow. I grinned. He bowed. Just to make sure I wasn't tripping, I looked behind me to see if somebody else was standing there. Nope, it wasn't. They bowed before me. My first response was to laugh at him, seeing as to how he a huge asshole. But then I thought of the preacher. How many times have we heard him tell someone not to bow to him? And now I understood why. The feeling of power that shot through me was enough to make me high. Surely no man should ever feel this way.
why not?
The whore queen asked, once again clinging to me like her cape. I braced myself for the intense pleasure that came from her touch. Only this time, it wasn't pleasure that I felt. It was power. I closed my eyes as wave after wave of power flowed into my body. I felt uplifted. I felt like a
God.
She whispered in my ear.
How does it feel? I can give you that. I can make all of your enemies bow before you. I can give you your heart's desire.
When I opened my eyes, Og and his men were gone, and we were no longer in the desert. We stood inside some kind of palace that was made of pleasure. Everything about this place attacked my already heightened senses. It made one think of sex, period. The big room was being lit by thousands of candles that reflected intimately against the red and gold walls and the golden floors. Erotic music filled the air. Sitting and laying on big plush pillows on the palace floor were dozens of scantily clad hot girls. Beautiful women with banging bodies who all looked at me as if I was the only thing on their menu. And they were ravenous. In the front of the room, on a huge elaborate golden dais, sat two ancient golden thrones. It looked as if trapped souls swam in the base of them, and I couldn't help but wonder if those were demon spirits that had fallen for the charms of the trap queen. Deep inside, I knew I had to get out of here. I've never been afraid of no enemy, but the whore queen frightened me. At no point did her cape stop touching me. But it wasn't like it was holding me tightly or anything, just a gentle caress. It made me desire things I was ashamed of, dark things, guilty pleasures. This place made you want to embrace all the things you knew you shouldn't. She glided up the stairs and sat on one of the golden thrones of souls, gently running her hand over the other.
For thousands of years, this seat has remained empty. I have ruled the world from this place by myself. I loved once. Like yourself, he was immortal. After he died, I couldn't bring myself to fill his place. Many have tried, angels, demons, and men alike.
She shook her head.
But none of them would do. None could replace my Nimrod.
Her beautiful gaze rose to me.
None till you.
She patted the throne next to her.
Come, my prince. Take your rightful place, and let me give you everything your heart desires.
The red cape wrapped around my arms, gently guiding me forward toward the golden stairs. I didn't want to go. No, not me, but my flesh. He's so handsome, I heard one of the ladies moan. As I passed them, they reached out their hands and touched my legs and arms. I want to taste him, another one said as she ran her hand down my chest. He's a powerful warrior. Look at his eyes, I heard another one say. Against my will, my legs moved me forward until I was sitting on a throne next to the whore queen.
Come forward.
Her voice rang out over the erotic music. A huge red velvet curtain moved to the side in the back of the palace, and Lion and Daweed stepped from behind it. What? Damn it. This is what this place does. I know what I was seeing. My mind wanted to believe my eyes, but this couldn't be them. No, I can't trust my eyes. I studied them as they came forward. Both of them had changed since the last time I saw them. Lion's locks and beard had grayed, and Daweed, my brother, my friend,
You spent your whole childhood trying to gain the love and the trust of these two men.
The whore queen's voice cut into my thoughts.
Forced to accept whatever nugget of civility they decided to bestow on you, clinging to it because you thought that it was all you deserved.
I bit down on my teeth at how close to the mark her words hit.
Poor Monroe. Always there for those who needed you, but nobody ever seen how much you needed them. They never looked at you and saw your true value. That all changes today.
Both Lion and Daweed put their hands over their heart. Please forgive us for fearing what we didn't understand, they said in unison, before both of them took a knee before me. Everything in my being balked against what I was seeing. I didn't want them to bow to me, but then I felt her hand wrap around mine, and suddenly I was able to see clearer. Lion and Daweed bowed before me. The rush of power was like nothing I'd ever felt before. Hadn't I always waited for this day? Finally, after so many years of begging for their respect, finally, my grandmother came from behind the curtain next. When you were a baby, I knew you were special. I just didn't know how to handle you. Tears came to her eyes. Please forgive me for my ignorance, she said, before she too took a knee next to Lion and Daweed. My free hand balled into a fist as my mother came from behind the curtain next. She approached the throne as if she was afraid, as if she didn't know how I would receive her. I've always loved you, Mijo. I was just too selfish to be what you needed me to be. Please forgive me, Poppy. And then she too took a knee. When my father stepped from behind the curtain, I stood. The Whore Queen did not let go of my hand. As he made his way to me, my gaze thirstily took him in. He changed so much since last time I saw him. His beard was now sprinkled with gray, along with his hair that he wore down surrounding his head.
Now your father is the one that disappoints me the most.
The Whore Queen's seductive voice came from my left.
Out of everyone here, he should have understood what you were going through. My Prince, your biggest flaw is that you always give and never expect anything in return. Here is the man who gave you life, but turned his back on you when you needed him most.
My pop came to a stop in front of the throne. And I wanted the Whore Queen's hand tightened on mine. My gaze hardened on him. I wanted my father to bow.